Steve Lindy, my colleague and the editor of the Jerusalem Report magazine, will moderate our next panel on tourism, seizing the moment as opportunity knocks. He'll be joined by Adel Ahmad El-Radcha, the chief operating officer for the Emirates Airlines, Avisheva Boshana, founder of the BPG Group, and Fleur Hassan Nahum, the deputy mayor of Jerusalem.
Welcome to our panelists, Adel Ahmad El-Radcha, the Chief Operating Officer at Emirates Airline, Avi Boujani, the Chief Executive Officer of BPG Group, and Fleur Hassan Nahum, the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. And Fleur, we'd like to begin with you. How did you get involved in tourism between the United Arab Emirates and Israel?
Well, wonderful being here in this wonderful panel. The truth is, my portfolio as Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem is foreign relations, tourism, and economic development. So part of my portfolio is trying to figure out how to enhance Jerusalem's profile as a tourist destination. When the peace accords and the normalization agreement was announced, I saw that there was an incredible opportunity to market Jerusalem, which is the third holiest Muslim site, Haram al-Sharif, to the Gulf as a new and interesting and historic tourist destination. So that was my original motivation. And my 2 trips to Dubai and my 1 trip to Bahrain has only strengthened my resolve that the Gulf, tourism in the Gulf is looking for a wonderful product like Jerusalem. Also for historical reasons, for religious reasons. It's a new type of pilgrimage that we can look forward to, as we've had for the last 20, 30 years, Christian pilgrims coming to Jerusalem and being a huge part of the economy of our tourism industry. I really feel there's an incredible opportunity for the new era of Muslim tourism. And I think that for Jerusalem, it's even more significant because 40%, almost 40% of the population of Jerusalem is Arab speaking. They're the Arab community of Jerusalem. And I think that this involves a very natural bridge between the tourism industry in Jerusalem, the Arab community, which is an integral part of our tourism industry in Jerusalem, and this bridge to the Gulf and to a new era of Muslim tourism. So that's how I got involved. And what we're busy doing at the moment in Jerusalem is building that perfect product for the Gulf tourist, be they from Dubai, from the Muslim community, but there's also in UAE, many Christians who would also love the opportunity to come to Jerusalem. And so at the moment, we're focused on building and personalizing that tourism product for the new era of Gulf tourism.
Thank you. And Avi Boujani, tell us a little bit about yourself and the BPG Group.
Okay, thank you. The BPG Group is a marketing solutions group. So we have verticals that focus on creating advertising content, doing public relations, doing social media, and doing digital marketing across. We are a 40-year-old business in Dubai. WPP, the world's largest marketing services group, is a significant but minority shareholder in our business. The group was set up by late Maid Ahmad Al-Ghurair, who amongst a lot of other things had also set up a bank, which is today called Mashreq Bank, etc., etc. The group has been intimately involved with the evolution of Dubai and the region. And one of the flagship projects that I had the good fortune of being involved with was the evolution of call it a tourism, call it a retail, call it an experience product called the Dubai Shopping Festival. So we had evolved the idea and I sort of brand managed it for nearly a decade. And we learned a lot of lessons. And hopefully some of those lessons today, the Dubai Shopping Festival, we are still experiencing that right now as we speak in January of this year. And we also did a few other products.
Adel El-Radcha, you are managing the biggest airline in the Middle East. How do you see the route to Israel opening up the region?
I think opening a route or a link between Dubai and Israel, for sure, it gives the opportunity to both sides. But I would say it is really more from the Israeli side is opening, give them the opportunity to go to Dubai, but beyond Dubai in a very quick a couple of hours, 3 hours, transiting in Dubai, but really giving them the chances to take advantage of the Emirates network in the Far East, subcontinental, Australia, and so on. So definitely it will enrich the route, and it will provide much more facilities to both sides.
Hassan Nahum, you talked about increasing Muslim tourism to Israel and especially Jerusalem. You yourself have been to Dubai and you've set up at least 2 organizations that promote relations with between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Sure. So back in already for about a year and a half, I've got one of my partners called Dorian Barak, who's been doing a lot of business in the Gulf for the last 10 years, was telling me that normalization was really, really becoming much, much faster. And so he's been telling me for a while, the new frontier for Israel is the Gulf. So in about June, which was already 2 months before the actual accords were announced, we said, let's just set up a business council, because we at the time estimated that there were about 250 Israeli businesses working under the radar in the UAE. And I know stories of friends of mine who were supplying products, who had to change the made in Israel on the label, and all these ways to get around, but essentially doing business with the UAE and other Gulf countries. And so we already felt this. We were talking to the American government, and we felt there was something coming. We didn't realize it was going to happen so soon. So we set up the UAE-Israel Business Council in order to build those bridges, to open those doors. I think there's an incredible amount of desire by many businesses on both sides to connect, but nobody actually knew how. So I think I believe we started working in a vacuum where people just wanted to connect, but they didn't have the tools. We said the minute that normalization was announced, we set up an online platform called the UAE-Israel Business Council, UAEIsraelbusiness.com. And we asked people, what are your areas of interest? So we gave them an option to tick off a couple of verticals to see which areas they wanted to do business. And up until today, we have over 3,000 members. And what's really interesting is that it's not just Israelis wanting to do business with the Emirates, it's also Emiratis wanting to do business with Israel. And so this gives us an incredible amount of data that we can use in order to build those bridges. So we've been very busy doing events, giving people the roadmap of how to do business in the UAE, connecting them to people that they're interested to do business with, and working on the different verticals to build those bridges. And we truly believe that once we open those doors, the free market will do its work. The free market will do its own job. And it's just up to us to open those doors and build those bridges. And so far, it's going very well. Last month, we ushered a deal. We match-made a deal of an Israeli water tech company with a local large manufacturing group in Dubai, and we look forward to doing many more of these matches. And of course, a lot of the matches, a lot of people coming through, also people from travel and tourism, and again, we're connecting those people, doing events around different verticals, and ensuring that people can reach each other.
Avi Boujani, you're based in Dubai. You just heard what the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem said about opening doors. How do you see UAE-Israel ties developing from here?
I think there's a considerable interest in UAE historically and for the future, with a lot of positivity towards Israel and all the opportunities that tourism, both social, recreational, as well as business tourism, will drive. And I see a bigger opportunity in global interest. Clubbing, for example, Israel and UAE as dual destinations, somebody coming from North America, somebody coming from Australia. The chances are families or individuals who come either for business or for pure leisure can plug both. It's multiple destination. And that's where I think a lot of interesting products that can be created. I'm sure Mr. Adil Al-Reda can talk much more about it.
Adil, you heard that comment. Tell us exactly how the Emirates airline is coping, and especially with the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic.
I think that we're all over the world trying to deal with this pandemic in the best way. Emirates have introduced many measures on board aircraft and airports to try to enhance the sanitization and impose social distance at airport area. But we are working closely with different governments and with within the UAE government to try to introduce different protocols like PCR testing in and out of the countries to encourage and really introduce some kind of safe measure to our travelers. These measures, I think, but the issue is becoming different countries and different governments have a different view of how they go around border controls and introduction of these measures. And us, we are sparing no effort to opening new destinations. We are now close to or a bit more than 100 destinations worldwide where we are trying to put our flight into. And we have seen a very encouraging result from wherever we place or open a new route. For example, if I take some of the destinations, we did operate at close to 90 and 100% seat factors on both directions. If I look at the Israeli Tel Aviv Dubai route with the existing flights we have between Fly Dubai and the other Al Al and other airlines operators, they were operating close to 90 and 100% during the Christmas time. So it shows you that people are wanting to travel, people have a desire to travel, and with the right measures we put in there, we are able to control at least the spread of virus.
Thank you. And Fleur, you also see the Abraham Accords as opening up relations between the Gulf states and the Jewish world. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. Well, Adel is completely right. There were so many tourists coming from Israel in December. I think everywhere I went, all I could hear was Hebrew. So it was 50 to 70,000 Israelis went to Dubai in the middle of a pandemic. So you have to understand what the potential is. Just when we have those facts and figures, and it's going to be huge. But I think that this goes way beyond just Israel, and it includes the Jewish world. And I'll tell you why. In North America, South America, and a lot of Europe, as you know, Steve, probably better than anybody, we have a lot of Jewish delegations of communities of different Zionist organizations connected to Israel, of all types, of all sorts. When I was in Dubai and Bahrain this time, what I was hearing was that there were a lot of tour operators from the United States or from Israel that serve the delegations from the Jewish world, and they were cutting deals and partnerships and joint ventures with local tourism companies for bringing delegations of American Jews, South American Jews, European Jews, that now, when they do a trip to Israel, as they normally do once a year, as we know, they're going to be including a Gulf component to their trip. So now the trip to Israel is not just going to be a trip to Israel, it's going to be a trip to Israel and the Gulf. In the way that many years back, Steve, we used to have people doing a trip to Eastern Europe to visit the Jewish communities of Eastern Europe and then Israel. Today, that is going to completely change to include a component of the Gulf. And this I know from my trip to Bahrain as well. And of course, from my trips to Dubai, which means that Israel and the normalization agreements has not just opened the tourism market in Israel, which is significant for a small country. I mean, we estimate that about 4 million Israelis travel abroad every year, which is for a country of 9 million. That's crazy. But on top of that, you're going to have the Jewish world visiting the Gulf as part of their trip or yearly pilgrimage to Israel. And I think that's going to be very significant. We already see the UAE preparing for kosher food provision. I'm seeing the same trend in Bahrain. And who knows, inshallah, many more countries that will open up to Israel in the Jewish world.
Avi, what initiatives do you think can be taken to develop both countries, Israel and the UAE, as mutual tourism destinations?
First, a disclosure, I haven't had the good fortune of visiting Israel yet, but I'm looking forward to doing the same very, very soon. I think this delay has happened partially because of regulatory historical reasons and largely in recent times because of COVID. But that said, I think Dubai is just not a great global destination today. Dubai has also become an exceptional destination for virtually every aspect of tourism from a luxury standpoint. So if I may say my humble 2 cents worth to Mr. Adil Reza is, I was hoping that there'd be more Emirates flights to Israel than fly Dubai, because that would create a greater global connect and more easily. And I genuinely believe that Israel would pick up a lot of things from Dubai in terms of global luxury tourism, because that's where Dubai has perhaps, in a way, outperforming the south of France and Florida on a lot of parameters. So in terms of the quality of entertainment to the quality of dining, and to take from Fleur, F&B restaurants are fast getting into kosher food provisions, because Dubai is extremely inclusive. So irrespective of what religion or what your beliefs are, Dubai is able to deliver to them, and UAE as a country. So I see a lot of, I think Israel would perhaps benefit from Dubai's experience with luxury. That's at one end. And at the other end, Israel could also benefit from the Emirates airline strategy of connecting two major metropolis of the world through Dubai. And now that can be extended to Israel as well. But Mr. Adil will speak, I'm sure, a lot more about the Emirates strategy on that. But we're blessed to be living in Dubai, and we're blessed to have an airline that we call ours, which is Emirates.
And Adil Al-Ritra, we will give you the last words. How do you respond to those last remarks? And what is your vision for the future? Do you see flights expanding to Israel, and perhaps including destinations such as Eilat as well?
Yeah, I thank you for the great comments. I think one thing definitely, Dubai and UAE and Israel, they got a lot to offer. In terms, there's a lot of heritage, investment, and science, I think, and IT technology to gain from each other's. But we are an airline, and definitely the more we connect to cities and capitals, the more we give opportunity for the various kind of levels people to maneuver and move from one region to another region. Yes, we have a plan to operate to Tel Aviv, as you correct saying. Emirates is an international airlines, and Tel Aviv is part of our plan to be part on Emirates network. So on the very near future, we would be commencing or stating the date. But definitely that will give the opportunity to both sides of the world, not only, I think, in UAE, but in the region. I guess it's to facilitate and expedite the traveling time. But from the Israeli, for sure, it will link Tel Aviv to the 130 destination. Emirates will be recommencing back, as we have right now 102 flights or 102 destinations. So I think all over there is a lot of an opportunity in different area and different fields, and many people would like, I think, to see the heritage, and there is a lot of history in Israel that maybe they did not have an opportunity in the past to visit and go and see. This will really facilitate that.
Steve, just to add on to what Adil is saying, I think that there's a real opportunity for Dubai to become the connecting airport for Israelis and a lot of the West to the East, the way that in the past we've seen with Turkey. And I think that there's a real opportunity for Dubai Airport to really take over from Turkish airport, where lots of Israelis connect with all over the world. And we look forward to that because we have a very budding, wonderful new relationship and warm peace with the UAE.
Thank you. We agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'd like to, on that upbeat note, thank all our panelists for joining us for this interesting discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Sheila.